So you talked about irreversible harm as well, irreversible damage to your child, the parent-child relationship, your child, whatever. And when you are not operating under the presumption of equality, and that a child needs both parents to reach his or her potential, generally speaking, if you're not operating under those presumptions, to me it seems that, like it or not, to me it seems that you are actually advocating for something that's destructive. And I have to question then if these people that advocate for these destructive policies are perhaps maybe themselves not a little bit psychopathic of some sort or sociopathic. Are they a detriment to society?
Well, I remember one thing. I was listening to a lecture by Jordan Peterson, and I think he coined it pretty well. He said the number one indicator of an adult male antisocial personality is a history of physical violence. I'm not quoting his exact sentence. He said the number one indicator of female antisocial is reputation ruining, slander, defamation.
Are you serious? I did not know that. Interesting.
Yeah. And he was interviewed by Danica Patrick. Danica Patrick,
the race car driver,
has her own podcast, and it was during one of those podcasts where she was interviewing him. And you had mentioned earlier the Amber Heard situation with Johnny Depp. Well, I think that's a very good example. And we run across this example all the time in family court, where the female is basically taught, coached to lie in court. And of course, because the male is the male, and the male is the perceived dominant, more threatening, stronger of the human species, then the female is automatically the quote, the damsel in distress, the victim.
Right.
And that's exploited. That is exploited. Where actually just the process of lying in court, defaming, ruining somebody's reputation, ruining somebody's appearance to a third party, the judiciary in court, that's an antisocial maneuver.
It's an antisocial maneuver done by people like, so for example, when getting back to this thing with the child custody evaluator or the, what I call the anti-family law attorneys, a lot of them seem to thrive on that, like they love it. I mean, I've watched some of these people, like they will slander a person, a perfectly good person, to have the court question his or her integrity, mental stability, and everything else. The attorneys that are doing this, we're fighting vigorously for our clients. That's crap, I think. What they are doing is they are engaged in antisocial, psychopathic activity. Now, you may say, oh, Jeff, that's really harsh to say it like that. But the reality is they're destroying people. And they love it. I've watched these people. And when you go to protest against them, they use procedural gimmicks against you to shut you down. I've seen this time and time again, and I've been in cases where I've testified for people that, the attorney has completely maligned and misrepresented who a person is, but that's how they win their case. And I think that is, and I don't know, this is just something that's running through my mind, but does the profession kind of attract certain types of people with these malignant personalities at times? It's pure speculation, and I'm just saying these are some random thoughts that go through my mind.
Just by hearsay. I haven't looked at the exact research. But again, if you're, and there's appellate case law that supports this. I mean, there's a higher bar of taking a child away from a parent. Unfortunately, unless the litigant or the attorney is going to press that, then opposing sides can get away with that. I think it just goes back to the stance that where I came from. I grew up, in an intact family. It wasn't a perfect family, but it wasn't in any way a destructive family.
Right.
Many of my siblings quite successful lives. My father and I had a very good relationship. My mother and I had a very good relationship. It was they both had different types of relationships. There was struggles. Somehow I had the modeling to be able to be goal-minded, to pursue goals, and have a child out of wedlock who I'm attached to, who I believe is attached, whom an expert assessed our attachment. That's an advertised expert who did a standardized care assessment that supports that.
He's more than an advertised expert. He is an acknowledged expert.
Yeah, he's not. Versus Alicia Sherry did not.
Yeah.
Whereas she's advertises herself as an expert.
Yeah. Advertised experts. I wonder if you could use the term advertised hack experts. But anyway, that's my opinion. Anyway, go ahead.
So, and I've been in a profession all my profession advocating for kids.
Yeah.
So I think it's natural that I disagree with the system that's going on right now.
Yeah. And the reason I asked about the thing, so for example, I've done a little bit of studying about this, but not a whole lot in depth.
Yeah.
A lot of times pastoral people have certain personality traits. I'm a bank examiner, and it's interesting because during one of our leadership courses, they gave us these types of assessments and stuff like that. Based on the test, you were put into 1 to 4 corners.
Yeah.
And I would say 80 to 85% of the examiners were in one corner. I was in a different corner. And I think maybe it's because I was a little bit outspoken or something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But I mean, so there are certain types, and even though I kind of said this in a funny way in a sense about the attorneys, but sometimes personalities do attract to certain professions.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I know that I've talked with some family law attorneys. They want to fight for families. They want to do this.
Right.
But I also remember that one movie that Matt Damon was in when he turned to the attorney and said, "When did you sell your soul?" Mm-hmm. When did you sell your soul? I think that the legal profession has compromised themselves in some instances, in many instances. Mm-hmm. I look at if you're a good attorney, a good lawyer, in a sense, you bring about justice. In a sense, you're acting as a minister of God almost, because God is a God of justice. But when did you sell your soul to the devil?
For some reason, the thinking that comes up when you're saying that is in the hearing, in which prior to the hearing that occurred in June, I non-suited my pleadings.
Right.
Which meant that I non-suited my pleadings. So I was no longer the petitioner on my pleadings.
Yeah.
And so I non-suited, I abandoned my pleadings for equal parenting, and I non-suited. That's what that means. Mm-hmm. So, and in the last hearing, there was the motions to reinstate the case.
Wait a minute. Who made the motion? You?
Opposing counsel.
Opposing.
But logically, it doesn't. There's no logic behind that. How could you motion to reinstate me as a petitioner when I've decided I'm no longer the petitioner? I'm not pursuing equalized parenting at the time.
We want you to.
And so. And by the rule 162, you can do this. And by case law, the only way you can reinstate a case is if the one that non-suited, the party that non-suited, wants to reinstate the case, or is accidentally, you non-suited by accident, like if there was some disharmony between the attorney and the parties,
right? And
the parties realized, oh wait, that's not what we asked you to do, and that was, and it was obvious, or that the party also just decided, okay, I want to reverse my non-suit. But you have to be very careful about that, because you can't use the non-suit in order to avoid a bad outcome.
Yeah.
And so after 3.5 years of litigation, where there's no ground being made, just a waste of money, and which can be destructive to the child, destructive to both parents, so you non-suit, and the only thing that can survive a non-suit is an affirmative pleading. But it has to be an independent affirmative pleading. And independent means an affirmative pleading not within the case, previous case. So what happened was apparently against guiding principle and case law, me as a petitioner was reinstated. How can you make somebody reinstate their pleading against their will? I don't understand this.
No.
So now there was a counter petition, but only after I non-suited, like within 90 minutes or so, 80 something 90 minutes after I non-suited, you know. You have to counter petition or counter sue, so to speak, in order to survive a non-suit. But you have to do it before the non-suit, okay? Or else, you know, if you non-suit, the whole case is dismissed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that would have included everything, okay, except independent affirmative pleadings, which would have included like sanctions, okay,
Yeah.
or an affirmative pleading.
But that would be prior to the non-suit, is what you're saying.
Prior to the non-suit, an
Okay.
independent affirmative pleading.
Okay.
And yeah, there's some gray area about, you know, you can title a motion anything, but really what matters is the substance of the motion.
Yeah.
But if you have motions that have attachments that are fraudulent attachments that are without affidavits, how can
Yeah.
you support that?
Yeah.
So apparently, after the hearing, I was labeled still as the petitioner, even though I non-suited my pleading. And really, what should have occurred was that the opposing party should have started a new petition.
Yeah.
And now they're the petitioner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they should have been seeking a whole different, whatever they wanted.
Right. Wow.
So, how does that make sense? How did we get on this subject?
Because I was talking about, you know, the attorneys that start off with noble causes, but then they sell their soul, or the whole thing about how certain professions attract certain personality types can go into certain professions because there's that synchronization between the two.
Yeah. So
And,
I guess the question is, how do you force somebody to continue to take up their pleading?
Yeah. I think the problem. I think that how we got there was that you mentioned this thing that happened, because I said, you know, some of these things that, you know, maybe they start off well, but maybe they become a bit psychopath. They've sold their soul or whatever, and that's how that happened. But I mean, so now they're you know.
So now we're still in litigation. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, that's okay.
So now we're still in litigation.
And
now we're going on.
And who's
We're
getting
on 4 years of litigation.
And who's getting paid?
The attorney.
The attorney.
Yeah.
And the mom can't afford the attorney, so he wants the dad to pay for his fees. Is that right?
Apparently.
What a rigged system this is.
Apparently.
Marshall Thompson, when did you sell your soul to the devil? I don't know if there's a devil, but when did you sell out? I mean, that's really what happens a lot. And I hate to say this, because, you know, you want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But having watched this stuff and having seen it, and I've watched a couple of other cases with Marshall as well. Mm-hmm. Because of your case, I thought, okay, let's see what else he does. And he appears here and there and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And you have to wonder, I wonder, when did he sell his soul?